Now, for more, I'm joined by Dr Bidda Jones. She's the RSPCA's Chief Scientist. Dr Bidda Jones, good morning. We just heard from the Prime Minister there. She says this is evidence that the system is working. Do you accept that argument?
No, in fact, what this investigation shows is that the system is failing to protect the welfare of animals that are exported to other countries. And the government's continued support for the live export trade fails to recognise that this is always going to be a second best option, that the option that should be chosen for the cattle produced in the north of Australia is for meat exports, and that in the long run will be the best option, not just for animals but for producers as well.
Just spell it out for us. How do you say this shows the system is failing? Because the government is adamant that this is evidence that the system is working.
Well, what the investigation has demonstrated is that the auditing process that's currently in place wasn't actually picking up some major faults in the system. So one of the issues that's been identified in the report is the use of what are called Mark IV restraint boxes. These boxes have been installed in Indonesia to facilitate unstunned slaughter. All of the breaches in the report relate to the slaughter of animals without stunning. If stunning had been a requirement of the process, then at least these breaches would have been reduced and they would have been protected. The welfare of those animals would have been further protected.
What about the government's actions against the companies involved now?
Well, the government's done exactly what it can do under the regulatory process. We have no issue with the action that's been taken. What we would like to see, though, is because the issue of unstunned slaughter has been identified as the risk area, that is actually addressed more widely. So rather than just prohibiting export to the 2 abattoirs that were part of this investigation, actually reviewing the use of those restraint boxes and actually suspending the use of unstunned slaughter in Indonesia while that investigation continues. What's clear from this investigation is that the regulatory framework has simply been rolled out too quickly to too many places. We know there are more than 60 abattoirs in Indonesia now that come under this supply chain. So how on earth it is possible to monitor animal welfare at every single one of those places across the board, we've got serious questions about that.
The Elders has issued a statement this morning. It owns one of the companies which was sending cattle to one of these slaughterhouses in Indonesia, saying the non-compliances which do not concern animal cruelty have been addressed through a series of corrective and preventative measures outlined below. Do you accept that the non-compliances did not really involve animal cruelty?
No, we don't. The breaches that have been identified were identified not just poor handling, poor slaughter, identified animals that were being handled and cut up before they had been confirmed dead, if that's serious animal welfare issue, and also not adequate training of staff. Standard operating procedures weren't specified, animal welfare checklists weren't being followed in one of those abattoirs. So those are serious issues that are putting the welfare of Australian cattle at risk. And I'd just like to underscore that this is a complicated system that the government has put in place in overseas countries to try to attempt to protect the welfare of Australian animals. It is not possible to be in every single slaughterhouse every day ensuring the welfare of those animals. We have systems in Australia, we have standards in Australia that would protect the welfare of those animals if they were slaughtered here.
There was a suspension of the trade last year that led to a lot of heartache for farmers around, for cattle producers across the top end. After this latest incident, are you once again calling for the suspension of trade, or are you comfortable with the system continuing with efforts to improve the assurances?
Well, the RSPCA is always concerned about producers' interests as well. We talk to farmers all the time, and we don't want to see producers put in a position that they were last year, where in fact the trade had to be suspended because the cruelty that was happening in Indonesia was so appalling. What this system is doing is trying to control that. We're just not satisfied that it's going to do that. In the long run, as I've said many times, that the trade needs to be replaced by a meat-only trade, and we would like to work with producers over the long run to try and ensure that that can happen.